Welcome back, besties. I have seen this concept kind of float around YouTube quite a lot where booktubers give authors that they hate a second try. Hate is a pretty powerful word. I don't know if I would say that the 3 authors that I picked for this video that I hate them. I do hate the books that they wrote. So the first author that I picked for this video is Sarah J. Maas. Now my history with Sarah J. Maas has not been great, honestly. I read Throne of Glass, I want to say back in 2015, and I ended up DNFing that book. And in preparation for this video, I went to see what I wrote about this book, because back in 2015 I was very much about giving reviews for books. So I'm going to put up on the screen the review that I wrote for this book. Actually, I found this to be quite funny that this is what I wrote here, and that I do still agree with what I wrote back in 2015. Like, nothing happens with this book. We expect in Throne of Glass our main character Selena to be a badass assassin as she is like billed and described to us, but like literally nothing happens. I think I made it like halfway through this book before I realized that nothing was gonna happen. The writing was very subpar even for my 2015 YA loving era, that I did not like this book. And so after I kind of DNF Throne of Glass, I decided that Sarah J. Maas and I, we are not simpatico, we're not meant for each other, and that is fine. So I've honestly avoided all of the books that she's written up until now. So the book that I decided to read for this is A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the first book in her ACOTAR series, I believe it is. And so we're just gonna give that one a try. The second book I decided to read for this video is Cassandra Clare's The Infernal Devices series. Now, my history with Cassandra Clare has not been great. I tried reading her, I think it's the Mortal Instrument books. I actually mentioned it in one of my recent videos of how shitty this book was, because I tried reading the first book, but it was very obvious. The first book in the Mortal Instrument series, I think it's called City of Bones, was very poorly written. It very much came across as fanfic, and I think that she did start writing that book as fanfic. And I could not get into it. The writing was so bad. The premise of the book was so bad. The characters were really god-awful, and I had to put that down. Now, when I picked up this book, I didn't realize that Cassandra Clare kind of has a problematic history within the book community. I've heard that she is a bully. I heard that she plagiarizes other people's work. I have not read great things about her, which is why I've kind of like steered clear of all of her books up until now. But I've heard, particularly from Sarah Without an H on her book channel, that the infernal devices in all of the books that she's written in this world, the Shadowhunter world, after the Mortal Instruments, are pretty good, and that you can start the infernal devices without having read the Mortal Instruments series of books. I think it's 6 books in there, but she said that you can pick this up without having read that series. So that's my plan. I think out of all the books that I've picked for this video, this one makes me the most nervous. And the last book or author that I decided to pick for this video is none other than Miss Rebecca Yarros. So if you want to know my history with Rebecca Yarros, just go ahead and watch my 4th Ring Rant Unhinged review of that book. And quite honestly, I hated that book. I hated that book so much. I thought the writing was horrible. I thought the characters were horrible. I thought it was far too tropey, and I did not like it. And so I decided to give Rebecca Yarros another try. After I read The 4th Ring, I learned that Rebecca Yarros is more of a romance adult writer, which is probably why The 4th Ring came off as romance fantasy, and it came off as she didn't really know how to world build if she's mainly like a romance author or contemporary romance author. That makes sense that the world building was so bad, that 4th Ring was her first foray into fantasy. So it makes sense, and now I decided to give Ms. Rebecca Yarros a second try. I don't know quite yet what book I want to read from her. She does have quite a big backlist of books, so we'll just find out once we get into this vlog, once I get to that point, what book from Rebecca Yarros I will be reading. So let's just get started into the reading vlog. Okay, I'm sorry, I've been living in this Taylor Swift hoodie since the concert, so don't mind me still trying to relive that wonderful concert that I went to. If you haven't checked out my video where I went to their concert, I vlogged the entire trip. I have clips of the entire concert. Please go ahead and check that out, because if you haven't been to the concert, life-changing, and you'll at least, you know, get a little bit of a feel of what it was like to be there and what the concert was like, and the vibe of the crowd was just insane. We are here for an update on A Court of Thorns and Roses. You guys don't know how long it took me to say that, but I've read the book and I have thoughts. This book it's not good. It's not good. It's not good at all. It was a mistake picking up this book because I ended up giving it 1 star. Now, the first, I want to say 20% of the book was nothing to write home about. I was like, okay, it's fine. But it was very obvious that this was going to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling in the first, like, 20% of the book, and then it takes a hard right turn there and didn't end up being what I thought it was going to be at all. But let me just set the premise for you here. So in this book, we have our main character, Feyre, I think that's how you say her name, and she lives in this town. Her family's kind of poor. She lives with her dad, she lives with her 2 sisters, and she is out hunting, and she ends up killing this wolf in order to get to the deer that she wants to get to feed her family. And the wolf turns out to be a fae disguised as a wolf. I don't really understand the fae setup of like Sarah J. Maas's world. I feel like in most of her books though, she's writing about fae and it just kind of, I don't know. I feel like fae is like the only thing that she knows how to write about, and I would really like to see Sarah J. Maas write like a contemporary romance novel or something that has anything to do with fae or anything to do with fantasy, because I will say the writing is not horrible in this book. The plot is horrible, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So she ends up killing this wolf that is a fae, and then we have Tamlin, and he's supposed to be the beast that finds her, and he's like, well, you killed one of ours, so I have to take you over to my like land or whatever. And so the thing about this book is that Sarah J. Maas, when she writes romance, she does not write it lightly. It's like Feyre slowly becomes attracted to Tamlin, or kind of like finds, you know, solace in her captor, but also Tamlin turns out to be kind of a weak-ass character. And there's another thing that we found out about Feyre is that she does not know how to read and write, and that part is not what got me. What got me is her dumb-ass decisions that she does for Tamlin. If you know, you know. And then we introduce another character, Rhysand. So it kind of turns into this like love triangle bit situation that the book obviously makes you want to root for Rhysand, but also we have Tamlin that does some shitty ass shit in this book, and you know what? It's just not for me. Feyre was just a dumbass bitch. Like, her decisions, like, she's the main character that makes the dumbest decisions, not including the fact that she can't read or write. Like, and I'm just ranting at this point because the things that happen in this book is just so dumb. Like, she kind of reminds me of Bella from Twilight. You know, in the books, like, when Bella, like, Edward goes off, or I forget what happened in the first Twilight book, but, like, she thinks that she's, like, helping Edward by like escaping or like running away, and then she just ends up making it worse. Like, she makes some Bella decisions. If you know, you know. Everyone has read Twilight at this point. Like, if you know, you know the decisions that Bella makes that are so dumb. Like, that's like Feyre and Bella are the same person, except Feyre cannot read or write. And also, there is something in this book where Sarah J. Maas, like, when she writes sex scenes, she does not go lightly with that. Like, she will go in and really go to town and describe what's happening, and it's not sexy. It's disturbing. It's gross. It's giving, what the fuck is what it's giving. So I think that from now on, I just need to stay away from Sarah J. Maas and her writing. I will not be picking up the rest of the books in this series. I don't think I will be picking up any more of Sarah J. Maas's books. Like, this was very much not for me, and Sarah J. Maas has a pretty like loyal and big fan base, and I don't need to keep reading her books just to keep shitting on it. So it's just not for me. Anyways, that's an update on this book. I will not try saying this title again because you don't know, besties, how many times it took me to get the title of this book right. So we're just gonna move on to the next book. I think the next one that I'm gonna read is probably The Infernal Devices. The first book, A Clockwork Angel is what it's called. This is the one that I'm looking to read the least of them all, because as I mentioned in my intro, Cassandra Clare has quite a problematic history, and so that makes me quite nervous to pick up this book. And also I tried reading the first book in her Mortal Instruments series, and I thought it was the dumbest fucking thing ever. So we're just gonna see how this goes. Please do a mental health check-in with me after this video is posted if I seem to have lost my mind, but we're just gonna get into this book now. I'm on the prologue, and what's literally getting me out this book right now is that I forget that they call people that are not a part of this world or the shadow hunting world mundane, and it's giving me the feeling that Cassandra Clare wanted to copy J.K. Rowling, because they call non-wizards in those books muggles. You already know that. Everybody knows that about Harry Potter. But like, it feels like to me Cassandra Clare just wanted to like copy what J.K. Rowling was already doing. And this is like, on what page am I on? I'm on page 3, and already the use of the word mundane is sending me into fits of rage. So I honestly don't know how I'm gonna make it through this entire book with the way that this is already going. This is the one that I have been dreading the absolute mostest. So pray for me, y'all. So I'm here to give you guys an update on my reading progress so far. I finished A Clockwork Angel last night, and I have to say, I've been with that book for a couple weeks now. And if I'm with a book for more than a couple days, it's not good. It's not a good sign, besties. And this book really dragged. I started reading it physically, and then I had to switch to the audiobook, and I had to pump it up to like 1.5 speed in order for me to finish it. This book was just so boring because nothing was happening. Like, literally nothing was happening for the first like 3/4 of the book, and it was just absolutely so boring. Now, the writing wasn't horrible. It was kind of plain, but it wasn't horrible. And the other thing about this book that just kept getting me is like, every single time one of the shadow hunters would call like a regular human a mundane, I was just like, you're trying too hard. You're trying far too hard. Like, that just kept getting me. And I recently watched a video from A Clockwork Reader, and Hannah was, she put out this video saying like the top romance fantasy books to read. And her top one was this book, A Clockwork Angel. And she ranted and raved about the romance that was in this book between Tessa, Will, and Jem. And I gotta say, I couldn't care less about the romance. Like, the romance was giving me high school drama. Like, this book would have benefited from people just like communicating and speaking to each other, because Will, I found to be kind of mean in the way that he treated Tessa. I just feel like he had no just care for her. Like, he was just willfully ignorant of her feelings. And towards the end of the book, Hannah was saying how this book was a top book for romance fantasy about that love triangle, and I gotta say, I couldn't care less. Like, in the book, it didn't give us underlying like feelings between like Will or Jem, or if it did, I just wasn't picking up on it. But I honestly just could not care less about the romance in this book. And the other thing that happened is like the first 3/4 of the book was just so boring. I was trying to like listen to the audiobook and follow along physically to keep me awake, and that's still making me fall asleep. And this book was the one that I was the most nervous about, just because of my history with Cassandra Clare. And I was right. Cassandra Clare is just not for me. Like, this book and this series is just not for me. And there's so many books in the series at this point. So, okay, I'm just not going to read it. Like, I'm not interested in it. And so the last 1/4 of the book is like where things really picked up. And there was this huge plot twist reveal. But I saw it coming. Like, once they located this man that they were trying to find, I was definitely like, y'all just gonna trust him right off the bat? Like, I would be locking him up, quite honestly. And it just gave naivete for all the characters just across the board. Like, I just kept thinking for this book, it would be a lot better if they had aged these characters up. Like, there were multiple times in the books where like people would say, oh, Will and Jem can't go because they're too young, they're not trained, blah blah blah. And this book would have been a lot better if the characters were adults. I will not be picking up the rest of the book in the series. I am firm believer that Cassandra Clare is just not for me. Her books are not something that I have enjoyed, and we're just not simpatico with this, and I'm just gonna leave her alone, because this series has a dedicated fan base, and I'm not one of them, and I don't want to continue to read her books just to continue to say that they're boring. are not well written, because it's truth. Like this was just very boring. The other thing is that this book was over 500 pages to say a whole lot of nothing. I just wanted her to be like, spit it out, sis, get to the point. She could have easily cut out like 150 pages of this book and it would have been far more entertaining. I just feel like a lot of it was just her trying to like build up the characters and give us like a feel of the characters. But at the end of the day, I just did not care. I did not care for any of the characters and like their motivations. It was just far too boring for me. So I'm really glad to just put this one away and be done with it. I feel like this video concept was just a bad idea because I'm ending up in the space of where I'm just not liking anything that I'm reading. I did not like the Sarah J. Maas book. I did not like the Cassandra Clare book. And now next we're going to move into the Rebecca Yarros book. So I checked out her backlist and actually found one that sounded interesting to me. And it was called The Things We Leave Behind. So I'm going to pick that one up. That one is a straight up like romance novel. And so I feel like that I might have better luck with. I did recently learn that Rebecca Yarros is Mormon, so I'm a little bit afraid of what's going on in her books. So the one that I'm picking up is not like her latest release, because obviously her latest release is The Fourth Wing, but her previous release of that was, I forget the name of the book, but it was about like something about like these two main characters that get on a plane and then the plane crashes and then we end up in like the characters end up like trying to support the war in Afghanistan, and I was just kind of like, I don't think I want to read a book about war times. This one also makes me a little bit nervous, but I hope it reads quickly. That's what I'm hoping, that it reads really quickly. And it is also, I think, around 450 pages. Why do romance authors keep writing books that are around like 400, 500 pages? Like, I feel like it's not necessary. Like, there's no reason a romance novel needs to come anywhere near 400 pages. That's just my opinion, but we're going to get started in the Rebecca Yarros book and just see how we feel about that. Let's just hope I have better luck with Rebecca Yarros than I have with Sarah J. Maas and Cassandra Clare. Please disregard my ugly appearance here, but I am about a third of the way through with reading The Things We Left Unfinished, or The Things We Said That's Unfinished, or something along those lines is what the book is called. But what I'm really here to say is that I'm shocked. Nobody is more shocked than me that I like this book. I like this book. I like it a lot. I don't think I had mentioned why I particularly chose this book, but this book is historical fiction mixed with modern day stuff. So we have part of this book where we're following Scarlett and Jameson, who are in, I think it's World War II, but they're serving in World War II and they met, and there is that part of the love story that we're trying to follow. And then there's present day where we're following Georgia and Noah. So Georgia is Scarlett's great granddaughter, and Scarlett is a well-renowned romance author. She's well respected in the book community, and she passed away and she left everything to Georgia, her entire estate, all of her literary trust and stuff she left to Georgia. And so then we have Georgia's mom, who wants to get Scarlett's last book that she never finished writing published finally, and was able to convince Georgia that, okay, yeah, we should publish this last thing just for like her gran. And so there's that part of it. And so in order to finish this book, because obviously Scarlett has passed, they have to hire kind of like a ghostwriter. So they find Noah, who's also another well-renowned like romance author, and so they agree, okay, Noah, you can finish the book. Oh, my dog wants to come back inside. So they come to this agreement that, okay, Noah, you can finish the Scarlett's last novel, but Georgia has the final say on what's actually getting written and published in there. So we have Georgia and Noah that don't really like each other, and Georgia just went through a divorce, and she is kind of like following to the same trap as her mom, because her mom has been like divorced multiple times, and you know, she doesn't want to end up like her mother, but she kind of is. And then we have Noah, who's the kind of like a cocky writer. He kind of sees himself as like one of the best writers out there, so he really wants to like just put another like feather in his cap, saying that he's able to finish like a Scarlett Stanton book and ghostwrite for her. So that's what I really like about this book so far, is that we're looking at two different timelines. We're looking at the present day, and then we're looking at World War II, where we have Scarlett and Jameson that's trying to navigate, you know, being in love but also serving in the war and having to be separated by that war. So I don't know, there's just something about reading like World War II fiction that I find myself really liking. I feel like almost any World War II like novel that I've read or like based in that kind of like setting, I've ended up liking and loving, and I feel like I'm falling into that trap here as well. And I don't need to use the word trap because it's a trope that authors use that I like, and that's 100% on me because I like reading about World War II. I was a poli-sci and history major in college, so that's 100% on me that I really like reading about World War II. And so no one could be more shocked than me that I like this novel. I'm feeling everything for these characters. I like reading more from like World War II, reading from like Scarlett and Jameson's perspective than I do from Georgia and Noah's timeline. The thing is though, I was physically reading this book and I really enjoy it, and then I also started listening to the audiobook, and I'm shocked that I also enjoyed the audiobook. So all together that we are very shocked that I am enjoying this entire thing. There is one thing I have to say about Rebecca Yarros' writing is that I find that she does objectify her characters a lot. Like the one thing that got me when I started reading this book is that like when Georgia first met Noah, it was like, oh my god, he's hot, he's fine, he's sexy, and she just immediately started objectifying him. And then like in the World War II era, Rebecca does the same thing both ways for like Jameson and Scarlett when they first meet each other. So that's just one thing that I don't like, that like she's objectifying her main characters in a purely sexual way instead of first letting them get to know each other before they kind of like have those feelings for each other. That's one thing I don't like. And then she's also doing this other thing where like the character will say something and then she'll put that thing in parentheses was like, holy crap, or oh my god. And that's one thing that I found that she did in the Fourth Wing too, but here she's kind of tamped down on it a lot, but it's still something that I find quite annoying. So if Rebecca Yarros can fix objectifying her main characters and also tamp down on her use of like italicization and you know that oh period, my period, god like thing, then I feel like she would do a lot better in her writing, or at least it would appeal more to me. But those are just two minor things that she's doing like in this novel. It was more so prevalent in the Fourth Wing than it is here, but I just felt like I need to say it because it is one thing that's kind of like, you know, getting to me. So far this is sitting at like a 4-star read for me, but I'm only a third of the way through the book, so who knows, it could get better. And there's one other update that I want to give you guys, is that I bought a new camera. There is something about using this camera where like in this lower corner right here, it like blurs the image, or there's this kind of glare. So I bought a new camera and it's supposed to come into the mail on Tuesday, so we're going to try to use that and hope that that fixes my glare issues. And yeah, so let me get back to reading this book on this lazy Labor Day weekend, and I'll let you know the updates or how far I'm able to make it far into this book today. I gotta say, the mom in this book, she's a bitch. She's an absolute bitch. I cannot stand her. She is ridiculous. The things that she does to her daughter, no, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Do not like it. And finally got to the point, like, there had to have been a point in this book where, like, there was a miscommunication between Noah and Georgia. And you know what? I don't think what he did was that wrong. I really don't. I think that Georgia is truly overreacting. I cannot believe that I am defending a man, but I have to say, he didn't do anything wrong and she's blowing it way out of proportion. That's just what's going on in the present day. Sorry, somebody just came to my window to drop off my order from Target. I'm in the pickup, enter curbside pickup for Target. But what I was saying that I don't think what Noah did was wrong at all. Oh, guys, look at this sticker. I joined Sarah Without an H's Patreon, and I gotta say, that's the first time I've ever joined a booktuber's Patreon, and I don't think what Noah did was wrong. Georgia's blowing it out of proportion. That's my 2 cents. I think that she has some serious trust issues with her mom and with her ex-husband, which is honestly understandable, but this man has done nothing but support you, girly. Get it together. I'm here to give you guys another book update, but this time with my dog because she is feeling very needy this morning. So, surprise, I have a fourth book that I read for this video, and that book would be Part of Your World by Miss Abby Jimenez. Now, I read The Friend Zone from her, and I honestly thought that book was quite misogynistic. If that book could vote, it would vote Republican. That book was the pure definition of, she's so little, he's so big, he's my protector, I'm not like the other girls. Like, honestly, the definition of. And the other thing about this book that I did not like was that it was supposed to be rep for women that had fertility issues, because in the book we have our main character Kristen, who has some problems with fertility and she wants to have children. And then we meet the other male main character, and his name is, I want to say is Josh, but that could be wrong. But Josh, he was like in the military at some point. He always talked about getting his gun. He definitely gave Republican vibes. And so, surprise, surprise, because this book was all about fertility and both Josh and Kristen wanting to have kids, she ends up getting pregnant at the end of the book, even though we've been told time and time again it's not possible. So she has just like a miracle baby. So this book is one that actually makes me kind of irate when I think about it, so we can just get past that part. I contemplated, like, is Abby Jimenez a Republican? The way that she wrote this kind of screamed yes. So I decided to read Part of Your World to give her a second try. Now, Part of Your World, I think I picked it up only because at the same time I was thinking about The Little Mermaid, because the song Part of Your World and The Little Mermaid is honestly like one of my favorite songs ever. That movie is my favorite movie ever made. And so are you tired now? What was I saying? So I decided to read Part of Your World. Now this one has been advertised. We have our main character. I can't remember what, it's Alexis, I think her name is. I don't know. But I know the guy's name is Daniel. So this is dual POV. So one thing that Abby Jimenez does do is she writes in dual POV, and I actually like that. But the other thing about this book is, so we have Alexis, who comes from a family of like well-renowned and respected doctors, and then we have Daniel, who lives in a small town, and he is the mayor of the small town, and he runs a bed and breakfast for this place, and he runs a bed and breakfast for the town. And so Alexis meets Daniel when her car breaks down. She's trying to drive through the small town to get home, and they end up having a one-night stand. And when she like goes to the bathroom, she finds his wallet, and she finds out that he is 10 years younger than her. So she kind of freaks out, and she like rushes and leaves the place, but they form this connection. So the whole like premise of this book is that they can't be together because they live quite different and separate lives. Like, she lives a city, she's quite wealthy, she's a doctor, and then Daniel's like a small town guy. He runs a bed and breakfast. He's not wealthy. Like, he loves that small town feeling. So that's kind of the premise, or like the conflict within this book. And I gotta say, this book is almost 400 pages long. And I know that a lot of people are reading this book being like, oh my god, redemption for Abby Jimenez. But honestly, Part of Your World was just kind of meh for me. I didn't dislike it, and I didn't not like it. It was just kind of meh. It was okay. Like, it was okay. I think I really liked Daniel and Alexis's relationship. I found that to be quite cute. He was 100% like a total simp for her, and he would do anything for her. And Alexis, I felt the mutual, I felt the relationship between the two of them. I was sold into the fantasy that these are two people that had a connection with each other, and I could believe that the romance. Now, the thing that I couldn't believe is just like Alexis being so smart. Like, she immediately was like, there's no way that we could be together. There's no way. Like, for me, I'm the type of person that's like, if there's a problem, I'm going to problem solve and I'm going to get through it. But for Alexis, like, with her being a doctor, she was like, nope, there's no way. This is never going to work. This is just a fling. And even honestly, towards the end of the book, she was getting quite frustrating to me, because like, this man obviously loves you and he wants you in his life. Like, please figure out a way to like make it work. But she wouldn't even entertain the idea that it could work. So that I found to be quite frustrating. And Daniel put up with far more than he, I believe, had to. So that's why I just kind of felt like this book was kind of like meh. Yeah, everything was resolved and everything worked out in the end, but like, for what? I'm not gonna 100% write off Abby Jimenez, because this Part of Your World was a significant upgrade to the Friend Zone. Like, the Friend Zone should honestly, Friend Zone is not worth being toilet paper, to be quite honest. But Part of Your World is just kind of meh. It's just kind of medium. I honestly wasn't like gushing over it. I did like Daniel, and I thought at some points Kristen was like frustrating, but I did like her too. But it just like didn't do it for me all the way. And what also got me is that this book is almost 400 pages. There's no reason a romance needs to go anywhere near 400 pages. Like around 300, 350 would have been fine, but it kind of just dragged on for me. And I was physically reading it, and then I got to the point where I was like, it's dragging. Like halfway through it, I got to the point where it was like kind of dragging, and so I switched to the audiobook, and then that didn't do any favors for this book. So I think maybe the issue is me and not necessarily this book. I would give Abby Jimenez another shot. But that's it. That's all I had to say on Part of Your World. I kind of just threw this one in there because I saw this book was something that was released and I quite hated the friend zone. So I decided, you know what, Abby Jimenez would be a really good one to give an author a second chance. Okay, I have now finished The Things We Left Unfinished. The Things We Left Unsaid. I can't remember the name of this book, honestly. This entire time while I'm reading this book, I don't remember what it's called. But we finished it. We finished it now, and I have some thought. There was a pretty big twist towards the end of this book that I didn't know if it was 100% necessary, and Miss Rebecca Yarros, Becky, Bex, if you will, she went for it, and she really put that twist ending in there, and I didn't see it coming. I truly did not. Excuse my dog chasing her own tail here. I feel like we could have done without that twist ending. I mean, it kind of helped things wrap up towards the end and explain some of Scarlett's motivations. If you know, you know, the girlies out there that's read this book. But I have some conflicting feelings. I don't know what I'm gonna rate this. Like, I honestly do not know what the rating of this is gonna be. Like, I'm hovering between 4 and 5 stars. Now, I don't know. It's that ending, man. And some of the writings. And I'm not a big believer in giving half stars. I don't think I've ever, in a review of a book, given a half star. But I don't know. It's hovering between a 4 and a 5 stars. I think I might need to, like, sleep on it and come back to this one at some point, because as of right now, I don't know what I'm going to rate it. And the thing about this book is that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was invested in all the characters. I was invested in Noah. I was invested in Georgia, Scarlett, Jameson, Constance, the whole thing. I was invested in everyone's story, and I wanted them to, like, end in the best way possible. I think the only person I didn't really like was Georgia. She was kind of a bitch, to be quite honest. Miscommunication between Georgia and Noah towards the end of the book, and it kind of was so stupid that I was just like, if y'all could have just sat down and just talked to each other for like 10 minutes, this would have been resolved. But they just were not communicating to each other at that point. And Georgia, like, the attraction between Noah and Georgia, I never really felt it. Like, it kind of made sense, but it was based purely on looks. And then when Noah would be like, oh, he likes her, like, firecracker personality, she's like a go-getter, she's creative, he liked her creativity, I, like, still wasn't, like, buying into it. But now that I'm talking about this, I feel like this book is 4 stars. It's 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed everything that happened back in the 1940s during the World War II type era. But when we flash forward to the present, that's when I was just kind of like, let's go back. So I'm now talking myself into giving this book 4 stars. But that's a huge win. I mean, I cannot believe that I like something that Miss Becky Yarros wrote. Like, this is truly shocking. I would have 100% assumed that I was not going to like this, especially because it was a romance. And throughout this entire reading vlog, I am shocked that I didn't like the Abby Jimenez. Like, if any author was going to redeem themselves, it was going to be Abby Jimenez. I was surprised that I ended up liking what Rebecca Yarros wrote and just kind of meh about Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And then the other book I read was A Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, which, to be honest, I had a feeling that I was gonna like that book, and I went into that trying to, like, keep my mind wide open and, like, give her the benefit of the doubt. But, like, that was the book that I was the most nervous about, and that, you know, prediction held true. I did not like that book. It was just kind of meh. It read very YA, which is, I'm not in that era of my life. I'm not into YA anymore. So that Cassandra Clare and I, we are not looking and reading at any more of her books. But I would try another Abby Jimenez book. I mean, I thought part of your world just kind of meh, so I would give her another chance. But Miss Rebecca Yarros, she has redeemed herself. I don't know if there's books in her backlist that would also interest me, like this one, because I feel like what really did it in for me with this one was the historical fiction part of it. And what I've read about Miss Rebecca Yarros is that she likes to write about like military wartime spouses, stuff like that. So I just don't know if that's something that I might be into, but I'm willing to give it a try to see that if I am. But I'm shocked. I'm shooketh. And I will say the other one, let me not forget, Miss Sarah J. Maas. I will not be reading any more of her books. After Throne of Glass, no, Missy. I did not like that book at all. I thought it was quite stupid. It didn't really make any sense. So we're just staying away from Sarah J. Maas, Miss Cassandra Clare. We're willing and open to Abby Jimenez, and Miss Rebecca Yarros, Miss Becky here. She has redeemed herself in my eyes. So I think all in all, this went okay. I would be totally willing to do this video again, but I don't think I could be one of those people that put out like, you know, giving authors they hate a second chance video more than maybe like once a year, because this dragged on for me. I've been trying to film this video for the past month, and that's insane. So I'm ready to move on to the next experiment here. If you like this video and if you like my reviews of these books, please subscribe. That would be really great if you do that, and like this video. And if you also would like to follow me on Goodreads and follow me on Instagram, links for that is down below in the description. And like I said, if you want to subscribe, please go ahead and do that. I would love it very much if you did. And stay tuned next week for another video. Bye-bye.